Hello and welcome back to part 2 of thyroid dysfunction. If you missed last week's episode on the anatomy, physiology, and the symptom picture of thyroid dysfunction, make sure you go and check that out now. Go ahead, we'll wait for you. Hello, my name is Corinne Brown, naturopathic doctor, labor doula, mother and host of NDTV. To recap from last week, the thyroid gland is a tiny little gland right in the base of our throat that is small but mighty, and it is in control of lots of different metabolic functions that keep our body running smoothly, such as our weight, our energy, our temperature, and our digestion, just to name a few. If the thyroid gland is out of whack in some way, it can throw lots of other things out of whack, all kinds of other hormones, and lead to some pretty generalized symptoms. Now, generalized symptoms are tricky to narrow down and find a cause for, and even trickier to treat, especially if you're looking to avoid prescription medications. If you think your thyroid might be in need of some lovin', then pay close attention to today's episode, where we're discussing thyroid hormone testing, as well as a full spectrum of thyroid treatments, both natural and pharmaceutical. The way it usually goes if someone is experiencing thyroid dysfunction is they would go and see their MD, who would do a physical exam, which includes the palpation or the feeling around the throat for any enlargement or nodules of the thyroid gland. As well as the physical exam, they would also run a blood test for TSH. If the TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone results come back abnormal, they may go ahead and test the level of T4 or thyroxine in the blood. If the T4 and the TSH come back abnormal and you're experiencing symptoms of hypothyroidism, you are most likely hypothyroid, and then they will definitely go ahead and give you some prescription medication. Now, the prescription medication that the doctor would give would be a synthetic form of T4, which would be something like Synthroid or levothyroxine. If you don't feel better after Synthroid and levothyroxine, you may need to do some deeper testing, such as your T3, which is the active hormone of your thyroid, which can be directly tested. You can also test reverse T3, which is another inactive form of thyroid hormone, but it actually inhibits T3 formation, the active form of the thyroid hormone. Another test that the doctor may run is anti-TPO or anti-thyroid peroxidase antibodies, which is that enzyme that's required to convert T4 into T3. It's also possible to test your thyrotropin releasing hormone to determine if the problem actually starts at the brain level, but this is definitely a more rare cause and would be a last resort kind of a test. Last week we talked about the way that pregnancy can impact your thyroid hormone production as well, because the hormones produced by the placenta can mimic TSH. It's a really good idea if you're planning to conceive to run a prenatal thyroid screening test, and make sure that that includes that anti-TPO or the anti-thyroid peroxidase antibodies, because we want to see if there's any amount of autoimmune reaction toward your thyroid before you undergo the stress of pregnancy and labor and birth. If you have any amount of family history of thyroid dysfunction, you want to make sure you get that anti-TPO test run before you conceive to make sure that you can prevent postpartum thyroiditis. Now, TSH is also run as part of that normal prenatal thyroid screening test, but it's also run to rule it out as a cause for fertility concerns. Thyroid imbalance one way or the other can lead to difficulty conceiving, miscarriage or habitual miscarriage, which is happening over and over again, and it can even be associated with a lower IQ for the baby later in life, so it's an important one to get tested. Even if you aren't necessarily experiencing symptoms, it's a really good idea to get your TSH tested. lots of MDs won't treat with that Synthroid and levothyroxine until the TSH gets to a certain level. So there's a bit of a window in between where the symptoms begin, you start feeling crappy, to where the MD is comfortable prescribing medications. And in that window is what we call subclinical hypothyroidism. Inside this window is where it is easiest to rebalance the thyroid with natural treatments. Once the thyroid is way out of whack, you may need to go on the prescription medications to bring it back into balance, rebalance with the natural alternatives, and then slowly wean off the prescription medications. So let's talk about some important components for thyroid health. Iodine is hugely important for thyroid health. When I was a kid, I used to hate iodine. That's what my dad would put on cuts to help disinfect them, and it would sting like a bear. But little did I know how important it was to my overall health. Iodine is actually really important for thyroid hormone production, and it's really difficult to acquire through our diets these days. Now, there are a couple of ways to get around this iodine deficiency. The first way is you can supplement with it directly, although iodine is a volatile nutrient and you can easily overdose, and that can be dangerous. So it's important to do it under the supervision of a naturopathic doctor. But here I have a supplement of liquid iodine, and it is derived from sea kelp. So what you do is you just take a couple of drops under your tongue every once in a while, and it helps to elevate your levels of iodine to regulate your thyroid. Another way that we can elevate our thyroid is through our diet. Now, I know I just said that the iodine has been depleted from our diets, but our salt, table salt, has been iodized. So it has been fortified with iodine for this particular reason, because it is so important and because it is so difficult to acquire through our diets. Another way you can get it through your diet is through eating seaweed. So there's a couple of different options. Dulse is a type of seaweed that you can eat that is actually kind of yummy, but I don't necessarily eat it to chew on it. I find that a little bit not quite so appetizing, but I do put it into soups. I do chop it up and put it into soups to kind of allow that iodine to seep into the other vegetables and the water, and you're eating the iodine or the seaweed as well while you're eating the soup. And then another way is through sheets of nori, and this is what you would be eating with sushi. The sheets of nori are wrapped in the sushi, or you can also eat them as wraps. So you put your veggies or whatever you're eating in your wrap into the nori sheet, and that's a great way to get the iodine into your diet as well. On the periodic table, iodine is considered a halogen, and other halogens that we ingest can actually block the receptors for iodine and block the iodine activity. So not only is it difficult to acquire the iodine, if we are ingesting lots of these other halogens, that iodine isn't even able to have the proper action in our bodies. So if you have subclinical or hypothyroidism or are deficient in iodine, it's really important to be mindful of these other halogens and work to avoid or minimize our exposure to them. So the other halogens that we are exposed to in our day-to-day lives are things like chlorine in municipal water and also in salt, fluorine or fluoride in commercial toothpastes and also in municipal water again, and bromine, which is found in wheat and some citrus flavored drinks. As well, if you are iodine deficient, you might be more susceptible to the iodine suppressing qualities of cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, things like that. So how do you know if you're iodine deficient? I mean, if you don't think that your thyroid is low and you don't necessarily have the symptoms and you don't know what your TSH is, but you want to know if you're deficient in thyroid, I've got a quick and dirty test for you. Alright, all you need to do the iodine test, I have to squat down so that you can see my head, is you grab your iodine tincture of 2.5% iodine. I just grabbed this at Shoppers or the local drugstore, and you'll just want to dip it in there, and then you'll do a little square on the inside of your forearm. And it's important that you do it on this skin because it's the thinnest. And you'll just do a little square like this. See that? And you'll want to do it probably some day that you're not going to have your forearm exposed, or that you're kind of just hanging around the house, because it's going to last for a while. Ideally, you want it to last for 24 hours. If it lasts for 2 hours, you are quite iodine deficient. So the body will absorb that iodine as quickly as you are deficient. So if it lasts, the closer it lasts to 24 hours, the more iodine that you have available for your thyroid, for your body. The quicker it's absorbed, the less iodine that you have available for your thyroid in your body. So yeah, I'll let you know how long my little square lasts in the comments below. Alright, so let's run through some vitamins and minerals that are really important for thyroid health. Number 1, tyrosine is an amino acid which is really important for the production of thyroid hormones. The dose you want to be taking is about 500 to 1500 milligrams per day, but talk to your ND. Number 2, trace minerals are also really important for thyroid health, such as zinc, selenium, iron, and B vitamins. Selenium especially because it prevents the production of reverse T3, which is that hormone that blocks the production of T3, the active form that we really want. Number 3, fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin A are really important for your thyroid gland. And this is why, another reason why it's important for your liver and your gallbladder to be functioning optimally and smoothly and clearly in order to make sure that you're breaking down and absorbing those fats. It really, truly is all connected. Number 4, gut health. If you're not absorbing your iodine, your zinc, your selenium, and all of those other trace minerals through your gut, then you can supplement or medicate until the cows come home, but your thyroid is actually not going to benefit. Number 5, food sensitivities. And this one is really interesting because any food sensitivity will increase inflammation, which will aggravate the immune system, which can cause the immune system to attack the thyroid. But specifically a sensitivity to wheat and dairy have been seen in individuals experiencing hypothyroidism, and especially celiac disease and hypothyroidism have been seen in correlation. So why not go off gluten and dairy for at least 3 weeks and just see how you feel. Your digestion will get a break, your immune system will rebalance, and your thyroid may benefit. Last week we talked about the connection between the adrenal glands and the thyroid, and cortisol and thyroid hormone. So really, in order to balance your thyroid naturally, you need to support your adrenals as well. Low adrenal glands will always impact the thyroid gland, so treating the thyroid is once again spinning your wheels and not treating the root cause. If you missed the episode that I did on adrenal glands for NDTV, I've included a link below for you to check it out. And lastly, if your thyroid is so out of balance that you do need to bring it back into balance with some prescription medications, we briefly touched on Synthroid and levothyroxine, which are the synthetic form of T4. Now T4 is not the active form of thyroid hormone. So if the issue is a conversion between the T4 and the T3, then Synthroid won't work for you. In that case, you will need to move to a different prescription, so you can get straight T3, you can get a combination of T3 and T4, or you can also get something called desiccated thyroid, which is an actual thyroid gland that is usually from a non-organic animal source, which is a little unfortunate, but it does have all of the components that the thyroid needs in order to rebalance itself. But again, that's not ideal. We don't want to be eating cow or bovine thyroid gland. Ideally, we're supporting the thyroid naturally through supporting our adrenals and giving it the proper nutrients that it needs to balance itself. So that's it. How's your thyroid? And if it's not okay, now you have some tools in your back pocket to maybe correct it. And if you are unsure of exactly which route to take, maybe consider chatting with your ND and creating a plan. Because like we said, it is all connected, and it really is truly best to treat any concerns that your body is having from the root cause. If you're digging this style of information, please make sure that you're sharing it with your thyroid-loving friends and family by hitting the share button right below that looks just like this. Have you ever treated your thyroid gland naturally, or did you run that quick and dirty thyroid test? Let me know the results in the comment section right below. If you want to make sure you get your hands on the inside scoop that I offer my amazing community, make sure you hit the Join Now button below and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Now go and get some iodine in that diet to love up that thyroid gland, because remember, if mama ain't healthy, ain't nobody healthy. Thank you again so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on NDTV.